Spark and Seed proudly presents The River of Blood, the deep-rooted hatred between Vietnam and Cambodia. For centuries, the Khmer and Vietnamese have been bound by geography, yet divided by blood. From the loss of Khmer Krom, where Cambodia's land was handed to Vietnam, to the brutal oppression of the Khmer Krom under Vietnamese rule, whose language, faith, and identity were nearly erased, and the vengeful atrocities towards the Vietnamese settlers during the Lon Nol regime. This is a story of betrayal, survival, deep-seated hatred, and a rivalry that refuses to fade. Through massacres, political manipulation, and deep-seated hatred, the wounds of history remain open. Can Cambodia and Vietnam ever move beyond their past, or are they destined to remain enemies forever? The Mekong River is a lifeline, a border, and a graveyard. It has carried trade, warships, and bodies. It has nourished empires and drowned the innocent. And through it all, it remembers. It remembers the long, bitter struggle between Cambodia and Vietnam. Before we delve further into this story, let's have clear expectations and understand the following disclaimer. Throughout history, the Khmer and Vietnamese have lived side by side. The rivalry between these two nations has been shaped by wars, betrayal, and the pursuit of power. But the true victims were never the rulers, the generals, or the politicians. The real victims were ordinary people, families, farmers, monks, and children who suffered under the weight of propaganda, discrimination, and the ambitions of those in power. This video is not about fueling hatred or deepening the divisions. It is about unveiling historical truths that long been buried or ignored. We must confront the past, not to dwell in the negativity, but to acknowledge the pain, honor lives lost, and learn from history's mistakes. The brutalities and violence we explore here were not the result of an inherent hatred between the Khmer and the Vietnamese people. Rather, they were driven by governments, colonial forces, and political agendas, those who manipulated history and incited fear for their own gain. Only by understanding the past with clarity and compassion can we move toward a future where the shadows of war, greed, and hatred no longer dictate the fate of nations. Cambodia and Vietnam are two nations bound by geography, divided by history. Their past is written in blood, their present defined by suspicion. And yet, their futures remain entangled. How much was stolen? How much was lost? Can anything be reclaimed? Khmer Krom, the land that was forcibly taken from the Khmer people by the French imperialists and given to the Vietnamese, bears scars of pain that fuels hatred. For centuries, the Khmer people ruled over lands stretching far beyond modern Cambodia. But as Vietnamese settlers pushed southward in their Nam Tien, or southward march, Khmer territories shrank, lost to expansion, war, and betrayal. In 1949, the French committed one of the most despicable acts which has scarred Khmer and Vietnamese relations for generations. With the stroke of a pen, over 21,000 square miles of Khmer land, 12 provinces, hundreds of villages, and more than 1 million Khmer people were handed over to Vietnam. The Khmer Krom people did not migrate. They were annexed. Their culture, their land, their identity stolen, piece by piece, and their suffering has just begun. A forgotten people, a stolen land? The Khmer Krom endured generations of brutality under French colonial rule and Vietnamese oppression. Their temples were burned, their language banned, their monks executed. Branded as second-class citizens in their own homeland, they were forced to kneel before foreign rulers, their cries for justice drowned in blood and silence. Monks were forced to swear allegiance to the Vietnamese Communist Party. The Khmer language was banned in schools, ancient pagodas destroyed. Any sign of Khmer identity was punished. One survivor recounted that they carved his uncle's face so that no one would forget he was Khmer. Then they burned him alive in front of the village. Entire villages were sacked and burned to the ground. Just imagine the pain and suffering that the Khmer Krom has to endure. Khmer Krom were publicly executed for speaking their own language, for teaching their children Khmer history, for refusing to renounce their identity. The world was silent as the Khmer Krom were erased, one execution at a time. To this day, Vietnam denies these atrocities ever happened. The world may have forgotten, but the Khmer Krom remember. By 1970, anti-Vietnamese sentiments in Cambodia reached its boiling point. When General Lon Nol took power, he declared that Cambodia must rid itself of the Vietnamese parasites. The result was mass slaughter. In the most gruesome acts of revenge, the Khmer soldiers did not just kill, they humiliated the Vietnamese settlers in Cambodia, a symbol of dominance over the hated enemy. One Vietnamese woman recounted that the soldiers made tea with her husband's head. She can still hear them laughing. She is still traumatized after all these years. Some wounds never heal. Both nations are still struggling to make sense of these senseless brutalities. Cambodia and Vietnam are no longer at war, but the conflict has never truly ended. Despite the fact Vietnam's effort in driving the Khmer Rouge out of power by invading and occupying Cambodia from 1978 to 1989. Even today, Cambodians accuse Vietnam of encroaching on their borders, illegal migration, manipulating their government, and controlling their economy. The sentiment against Vietnam stealing Khmer lands are still very strong until today, as it was 80 years ago among the Khmer Krom people. Hatred is passed on as history has to new generations. But so too is the hope of something greater. Can Cambodia and Vietnam ever move beyond their past, or will they remain prisoners of history? History is written in blood, but the future remains unwritten. It will require courage, determination, leadership, and genuine willingness to reconcile from both sides. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment or two. At Spark and Seed, igniting ideas, growing knowledge,